Across the Spider-Verse defies expectations by painting its main character, Miles Morales, as someone who might be in the wrong. And everyone's first glimpse of this was this scene in the announcement trailer, with Miguel, the Spider-Man 2099, attacking Miles Morales. Now, throughout the movie's second half and with hints in the opening segment with Gwen, we are given a Miguel who is relentless and borderline villainous, to the level of Kingpin and a Spot. Quite the departure from his intro in the first movie as a witty future Spider-Man. So why is Miguel mad at Miles? There's plenty of reasons why, but are they founded in good reason? There are some valid surface level reasons. For example, number 1, Miles is immature and young. Characterization is important, and in this instance, it would make sense that this older veteran spider hero would have his cynicisms, especially given his circumstances. Miles first meets Miguel in the Spider Society, all-inclusive resort and office building for interdimensional spider problems. But further back, we see that Miguel's been through it. He's not quite the quippy fella we saw in the first movie. So it stands to reason that Miguel wouldn't be putting up with any BS. Deviance to his chain of thought wouldn't sit well with him. This includes Spider-Punk, who was just a rebellious anarchist to begin with, and the moment where he'd have to include Gwen into the society because of complications.
Let's go!
Miles is no different. He's only about 16 or so years old. He's a good Spider-Man, but at his heart, he is still a kid. At most, an emerging young adult. His mentality is going to be vastly different to Miguel's. It's the catalyst for the entire second half of the movie. Now, this isn't just a generational gap, even for superheroes from other dimensions. Miles is quippy, energetic, he's got an eye for being creatively annoying as a Spider-Man when fighting his foes. His costume, his youthful swagger, his attitude, his approach to life as a person and as a Spider-Man. It's all very different, even naive to someone like Miguel. The implications here are that Miguel would have to put up with working with someone who will likely disagree and offer and act on immediate perspectives, especially when it comes to superhero work. And Miles is a superhero, and has been for about 2 years by the second movie. We don't know how long Miguel's been a superhero, but we can estimate that it's been further along his superhero career. To just simply include Miles, particularly at the time when he discovers the Spider Society because of all these reasons, Miguel would not be happy, nor as willing to team up for the exact reasons that Miles would expect. With great power comes great responsibility, but both of these people have different perspectives on that. Reason 2. Miles is not Peter Parker. Which brings us to reason 2. Miles is not Peter. This is quite important because Peter tutored Miles into becoming and believing in himself as a Spider-Man. On the other hand, Miguel has amassed, essentially, an army of Peter Parkers, including variants. Miles learned to be a hero and to be his own self as a Spider-Man. Peter B does come from a different universe, so the meta-analysis of this is a bit weird. Nonetheless, both Peters saw a hero that could do great things in Miles, teaching him to help others while acknowledging that there are some things, some inevitabilities, about being Spider-Man that he had to accept. That, paired with the confusing, loose, unstructured, and inexplainable nature of the Spider multiverse, does bring Miles' idealisms into conflict with the idea of canon events, and essentially letting people die. Also, there's the Spot, but more on that later. Miguel and the Peters of the Society all agree or acknowledge his core philosophy of needing to mend universal rifts that could destroy entire universes. In fact, if you look at the chase scenes or when Miles is having his moment of rebellion, there's very prominent Peter Parkers that stand against him. Spectacular even gives his own reasoning as to why Miles is at fault. Do note that I'm not saying that every single Spider-Man in the Society is a Peter Parker. There are other versions with different genders, ethnicities, even who or what they are as a being, like a car or a dinosaur. But for the most part, especially during the second half, the Peters are the ones that not only disagree with Miles, but also go out on a limb to chase him down, Odd, considering that any normal Peter Parker would want to actually ask why. Miles is not a supervillain, and Miguel literally only gives a direct, nondescript order to chase him down. Yes, Miles comes from another universe, and so maybe he is an anomaly to stop, but consider this. Miles does exist in other universes, like Insomniacs. Thus, it feels as if, and some of the commenters on my other Spider-Verse video pointed this out, most of, if not all of the Spider Society members seem to be conditioned fully in Miguel's philosophy of canon events. The implications, by the way, are to literally let people die if it means preserving a universe, which has only happened, as far as we know, with Miguel, when it comes to who started what. So, Miles not being a Peter Parker means that his story is going to be different, and therefore his characterization is going to be different. No Uncle Ben moment, but an Uncle Aaron moment. His companions were Spider-Men of other universes, and even the origins of his powers were vastly different to any other Spider-Man, because it also came from another universe. So Miles is young and immature in Miguel's eyes, and he is less susceptible to Miguel's ideas because he is not a Peter Parker. In fact, Gwen's squadron at the end consists of people who have vastly different backstory settings and reasonings for why they are a Spider-Man. Key elements remain like an Uncle Ben figure, but the way they look at the world is different enough that they wouldn't buy into Miguel's ideas immediately. But I don't think that's why Miguel doesn't like Miles. Those are just a couple of perspectives. Here's my take. I've tiptoed around the main issue that I feel best summarizes why Miguel specifically is so antagonistic to Miles and company. Now, what makes this angst and anger to Miles specifically so unfounded is the circumstances of Miles' Spider-Man origin and how it has carried out for a long chronological time. Miles is certainly influenced by Spider-Man. I mean, come on, it's Spider-Man. He's that guy. But I don't think at any point Miles looked at Spider-Man and said, I'm gonna be that guy. If there is anyone he wanted to be, it was his Uncle Aaron. Hence his alternate universe is Prowler Miles. Kingpin's Collider. This thing is butterfly effect incarnate. Kingpin's plan was to bring his family back to him, or rather take a variant of his family from another universe and bring them over to him. Thanks to Spidey's interference, not only did this fail twice, but the first failure led to a malfunction in his collider, instead opening a rift in reality with Spider-Man at its epicenter. Because of this, a Spider-Verse of sorts has opened and connected several realities of Spider-Man together. Miles, caught in the crossfire, is entrusted with the fate of his universe, becoming Spider-Man and stopping Kingpin, as well as sending some multiversal stragglers back home. So, it's not Miles' fault by any chance. He doesn't possess any powers to be able to break reality in half, and his existence alone is not a danger to his universe. Or, well, kind of. Because Miles fought Kingpin, he accidentally caused researcher number 43 to become the Spot. However, the Spot's existence, while linked to Miles, is not enough to justify Miles being the sole reason everything is going down. The Spot is a character with their own agency. It just so happens that they use said agency to, well, make everything break down. No, I don't think Miguel here hates Miles for having a villain uniquely linked to him, a la Venom to Peter. I think Miguel hates Miles because he is everything Miguel is not and cannot have. Miguel is already not your typical Spider-Man. We don't know this Miguel's exact origin story, but in the setting of 2099, Miguel's Spider-Man origin results from an accident caused by a malicious coworker. From then on, he's seldom your typical Spider-Man. He's a tad bit more vicious and lives in a world where superheroes aren't the norm. Even then, we know from the first movie's post-credits scene that this Miguel is, or was, at least pretty chill. So, what happened? Well, this Miguel, who has been watching other universes for some time, found a universe where Miguel was tragically killed. This alternate Miguel then took it upon himself to essentially replace the dead one, becoming the father of that Miguel's daughter, and became their Spider-Man 2099, assuming that universe had one to begin with. According to Miguel, that universe didn't like that according to its canon. and imploded in itself, completely erasing its existence. What does it all mean? Well, taking this experience into perspective, the reason Miguel would be so hostile to Miles is because Miles is basically his opposite. Miles was handed the mantle of Spider-Man because of multiversal interference. He became a successful Spider-Man who managed to prevent his own universe from collapsing. And from that moment onwards, he embraced the Spider-Man name, protecting the city from criminals and making a name for himself. No multiversal self-deletes, no glitching out of existence problems. And he has a family that largely supports him and his endeavors. Kind of. Oh, and he has friends that understand him and would love to reconnect with him should circumstances allow it. All in all, despite the multiverse nearly crushing his world, Miles has been able to live his life without issue or disruption from some obvious facts, such as him knowing that other Spider-Men from other universes exist, and him basically getting to be Spider-Man because of this spider from another universe. Miguel, on the other hand, has no family, no world to return to. He's pushed himself to be the head of a massive operation meant to cut down on destructive multiversal events that shouldn't happen because he caused one himself. Do you see how disconnected yet similar these events are? Cause and effect aside, it stands to reason that Miguel sees Miles as a threat to himself and his purpose, perhaps the last two things he knows he has. It's not a shocker he gets not only upset, but incredibly angry and hateful when Miles is able to dodge, outthink, and outmaneuver both Miguel and the entire Spider Society, and use their absurd resources against them and for his own benefit. Mind you, not to be selfish, but to save someone from a villain of astronomical power. For Miles to do that is in defiance of the very foundation of what Miguel believes in. Should Miles succeed, it is the final breaking point for Miguel, because that ultimately means he is not only wrong, but a large majority of what has happened will fall onto his shoulders. And at the core of it all, it means it is his fault. Not the spot, not the collider and its side effects, but simply that he destroyed a world following his own desires. Existential crises aside, this is why I believe Miguel doesn't like Miles. For the man who thinks he has everything, there is a man who believes he doesn't deserve it. A man envious of the everything he cannot have.